Hi everyone. Thank you for joining April 2022's Stampin' Class by Mail. I'm Gina Wieselman of MySweetPaper.com, and I can't wait for you to make your beautiful cards using the Flowering Field Suite by Stampin' Up. I've teamed up with Brenda Cardinal, another Stampin' Up demonstrator, to offer these monthly classes by mail. This month, Brenda will show you how to stamp and assemble your cards, and next month it'll be my turn. Make sure to watch to the end of this video for a sneak peek of next month's card designs. Also, make sure to click subscribe on this YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our future videos. Have fun making your cards. Here's Brenda.
Hi everyone, I'm Brenda Cardinal of stampintulip.stampinup.net, and I can't wait to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards using the Flowering Field Suite by Stampin' Up. This suite can be found in the January to June 2022 mini catalog and is considered a mega suite because it has 2 stamp set and die bundles. For this class, we'll be using the Flowering Tulips bundle. If you ordered a class kit by mail from either Gina or me, you already have all your cardstock and embellishments cut and ready to go. Just pull out the stamp set, ink pads, and a few other supply items shown here to complete your cards as designed. Please reach out to Gina or me if you need any stamping supplies, would like to learn more about becoming a Stampin' Up demonstrator, or hosting a Stampin' Up event. Let's get started with our first card. Our first card is the Poppin Tulip card. If you ordered a Stampin' Class by Mail kit from either Gina or me, all your parts and pieces, including those that have been die cut or punched, were shipped directly to your home. If not, here are the things you'll need to complete the cards as designed. Pause the video here to prep everything and then come back when you're ready. We're going to start by doing our stamping, and we'll start with our Evening Evergreen ink. And we'll stamp our greeting on our banner. This banner was punched with the Banner's Pick-a-Punch. A great punch. It's like 6 punches in one because you have 2 designs that it'll punch, and then it has slots for 3 different widths for both designs. Great punch. Okay, so Happy Mother's Day is what we're going to stamp here, and we're looking to center that. There we go. And we'll set that aside. And then we're going to stamp our little X's on our Pear Pizzazz background. And before I start stamping, I'm going to fold my card base in half and use my bone folder to put a nice crease on that. And then I'm going to pull in a piece of scratch paper so that I keep my placemat here nice and clean for my entire stamping presentation. We're just going to stamp some Evening Evergreen X's in the lower left corner, and then some in the upper right corner. And we're going to cover a lot of this up so you don't have to stamp the X's all the way across the page. But to make sure I like how that looks, I'm going to bring in my larger Poppy Parade piece and lay it down and see what I think. And I think that looks pretty good. So we'll set that aside. And then we're going to switch ink colors. We're going to go to our Poppy Parade, and we're going to stamp our tulip on the smaller basic white piece. So Poppy Parade ink. And this tulip is 2 parts. It has the flower head, and then it has a fill-in one to create more depth. So we'll start with the larger one, and we'll ink that up, and we'll stamp that towards the top and in the center of our basic white piece. Then we'll take our fill-in stamp and we'll stamp it off once, and then we'll stamp it right there to create nice depth for our tulip. All right. So then I'm going to move the Poppy Parade ink aside, and we'll bring in our Pear Pizzazz, and we'll stamp our stem and our leaves for our tulip. So I'll start with my stem. So, you know, placing your stem, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move it up. It's a photopolymer stamp, so I can see all the way through so that it's above the bottom of my tulip, and then once I see that, I'm going to bring it back down till I just don't see the tulip anymore, and I'll snap it down. and it gets tucked down there nice and tight. Then I'll stamp the larger leaf over here to the left. And then I'll stamp the smaller leaf to the right. Now these stamps are kind of cool because you can stamp them whatever direction you want to. So it doesn't really matter, you know, whatever looks good to you. And I think in this case, I'm going to, no, I think I'm gonna go the other way. Okay, so there's our front tulip. Now we have one stamped on the inside, so let's bring in our larger basic white piece. And in this case, I'm going to start with my stem and work reverse than what I did for the front one. I decided I didn't want this one falling off my cardstock, so I'm going to move her over a little bit because I'm going to put a large leaf on the left of the stem. So I'll start here. And maybe I'll flip this around so it's a little different than the front. I'm going to crisscross my stem just a little bit. And then we have this cute little stamp. I was like, what do you do with that? Well, this one can go right here as though there's some grass growing around the tulip. All right, then I bring my Poppy Parade stamp pad back in and we'll repeat that same process. We're kind of working in reverse. Now I'm overlapping my tulip stamp with my stem, and I'm going to pull it up till I just don't see the stem through my stamp anymore. And then I'll ink up a fill-in stamp, and we'll stamp it off once, and then stamp it again. So there we go. If you'd like, you can stamp that same tulip on your envelope as well. All right, well, so that's all of our stamping. So move all my stamps and stamp pads out of the way, and we can start assembling now. So let's start by putting the piece that we just stamped on the inside of our card, and I'll use Stampin' Seal for that. Oops, get this started a little bit. There we go, I think I got it. Nope, not quite yet. There we go. And we're going to place this so we have equal borders. Now, if you wanted to, you could stamp a greeting inside your card as well. Totally up to you. This way, if you don't, you have a nice big area to write a nice message to your mom. Okay, so we'll set this aside and we'll start building here. So we'll attach our designer series paper to our larger Poppy Parade piece. And then we'll attach our stamped tulip piece to the smaller Poppy Parade piece. And then we'll start layering. Now you have a choice here. I popped everything up with dimensionals for the card, but if you like a flatter card, you could skip the dimensionals and just use your Stampin' Seal. So why don't I do that? Well, no, let me do it the way I designed it here so you can see how I place my dimensionals. But you could, like I said, you could skip the dimensionals and just use your Stampin' Seal. So let's get everything ready. I even popped up the greeting. So I'm going to put, I think, on this larger piece, I'm going to put 5 dimensionals. And I think on the smaller one here, I can put, well, I might put 5 on this one as well. I was going to say 4, but I'm going to put 5. And then the banner's just wide enough that we can put these larger dimensionals on here. Now, the banner falls off this top piece, so you want to tuck your dimensionals in a little bit so they only attach to the top layer. Okay, so then we're ready to go here. Just peel these release papers off. Start with our largest designer series paper assembly, and we'll center that. Then we'll add our stamped tulip. and center that. Then we'll add our greeting. And wherever you'd like to put that. And I'm looking to see if I have the same borders on the left and right side. And well, let's see. Pick that up and try that one more time. There we go. And lastly, we're going to attach some little brushed brass butterflies. They come in two sizes. We're going to use 2 small for this card, and we'll use the larger ones on another card. And I put them right here in the corner, but you could certainly place them, you know, someplace else if you want. If you want to maybe put them by the tulip here, maybe just, I don't know. You do that, whichever way you'd like to go. So with our envelope, that's our first card. Our next card is the pocket thank you card. And here are the parts and pieces you'll need for this card. So I want to just quickly show you. So the pocket, our card bases are the pocket that our piece that we would write our greeting just tucks into. So I'm going to leave those both out like that. So we have some simple stamping. And we will be using our Evening Evergreen ink for our greeting for this card. And then we'll stamp our thank you on our die cut basic white circle here. And we die cut that with the layering circles dies. And there we go. And that's all our stamping, unless you'd like to add something to the envelope. I just use those little X's from our first card for my envelope. Okay, we'll set that aside, and then we'll begin assembling our card. So let's take our Evening Evergreen card base, and this has been scored twice. So we're going to fold it in half along the 5.5 inch score line, and then we're going to fold this back on that second scored line and use our bone folder again to put a nice crease on that. A little glue on there or something. Okay, so we're going to start by adding our Tulip, it's called Flowering Fields Designer Series paper, on the front of our pocket. So you want to be kind of generous with your adhesive. In this case, I'm using Stampin' Seal. And we're going to put it towards the, so it's like this, right? So we're going to put this piece so we create equal borders along the left and right side and the bottom. And we just want to make sure that when this folds over, we don't have a gap there, that the Designer Series paper, this flap covers the Designer Series paper. So that looks good. Okay. Now we're going to create our pocket, and to do that we're going to use our tear and tape adhesive. I love this adhesive. I love this adhesive. It is great for any kind of wear and tear your card might take. So we want to make sure, and it's a little stronger too, so it'll seal really well. So I'm going to put 2 pieces of tear and tape adhesive on that flap, okay? And I'm going to put a little pressure on it, and then I'm going to peel the release paper and then fold that flap back, okay? So that'll be nice and secure. Then I'll open up my card base here, or my pocket, I should say, and I put some tear and tape adhesive close to the outer edges. And notice I'm putting it on the side of the Evening Evergreen piece that has the, well, I guess I could just call it the shorter side. If you have trouble with pulling the release paper, I did learn a trick. I didn't do it the first time around, but somebody said if you burnish it with your bone folder, it does come up, that release paper does come up a little easier. So give that a try if you're having trouble trying to peel off that release paper. And then I'll create my pocket. Okay, then we'll add the second piece of designer series paper. Interestingly enough, the back of the piece that we used the first time is coordinates beautifully. So rather than having, you know, two of the same, decided to use the other side of the designer series paper for an accent for the little flap. And then we want to center that. I'm also trying to line it up so that visually when I look at it, designer series paper looks like it's, you know, continuous or has a straight line. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Okay, and then we'll pull our greeting back in and we'll attach our stamped piece to our die cut mango medley designer or cardstock, and this was also cut, the mango medley piece was also cut with the layering circles dies. And then to give that a little dimension, we're going to pop that up. And I think what I'll do is I'll put my dimensional here on the flap, and I might put a couple, maybe even 3, kind of all in a row. And I'll peel those release papers up and stick our greeting, making sure it's, you know, straight. And I'm going to tuck it up so it's a little, like this one looks like it's, well, maybe it's centered. Maybe centered is the best way to go. So we have the same amount showing above, the same amount of the circle showing above this piece here and below that piece there. Okay, and then we'll take our mini glue dots and we'll add our evening evergreen window pane bow. And I probably say this every time we make a video that has a bow, but one of the favorite things I think about our classes when you buy a class kit is that we pre-tie all the bows for you, so you don't have to do that yourself. All right, so then we need to create our piece that tucks into the pocket. So we'll start by adding this mango medley die cut piece to the bottom of our basic white piece. And to do that, I'm going to switch adhesives. I'm going to use our multi-purpose liquid glue. And when I can, I like to, with this kind of layer, I like to cut it a little bit longer so that I can trim up the edges and then I don't have any, it's not short. So I'm going to put some on that piece, and then I'm going to just do a little glue on some of the flowers, some of the bigger spots in the flowers. Okay. Just double check it. One of the nice things about liquid glue is if it's not quite straight or something, you move it around a little bit before you would stick it down. Okay, and then I'll come back with my paper snips and trim off the excess here. And then all I need to do is attach that to my mango medley piece. We'll switch back to our Stampin' Seal. Okay, and then we have our piece to tuck into our pocket. And then with our envelope, there's our second card design. Our next card is the Floating Tulips Fun Fold card. And here are the parts and pieces you'll need for this card. All right, I'm going to show you how this card works because it'll be helpful as we start stamping and assembling. So the belly band here pulls off, and then when you open your card, the tulip piece moves and stands up. So it's really fun. If you like those kind of fun fold or cards that move, it's really fun. Okay, so let's start with doing our stamping, and we'll start with our rich raspberry ink, and we'll stamp our label here. And this label was die cut with the Tasteful Labels dies. And we'll center that right up. Okay, and we'll set that aside for a minute. And then if you'd like a greeting on the inside, let me show you how I place that. So you take your basic white piece here and lay your rich raspberry piece along the edge. And this is smaller than where we're going to mount our floating tulip here. So you can push it over just a little bit so it's off the left edge here. And then you can come back with your inside greeting and then stamp that kind of centered between those, between the right edge here and our rich raspberry piece. Of course, you don't have to put inside greeting if you don't want to. And then we are going to stamp our stems. Now this is optional, but let me show you what the different looks are. So for this sample, I only stamped the leaves. I didn't stamp the stem. For this one, I stamped both the leaves and the stem. So if you like the way that looks, you could do it that way. Or you don't have to stamp them at all, which looks really nice as well. So you decide. For my demonstration purposes, I'm going to stamp the two leaves and show you how to do that. And we'll be using, again, our Evening Evergreen for that. Now, because these are photopolymer stamps, you could probably just grab your stamp and then kind of look through it and stamp like that if you want to. And if it wasn't perfect, it would be fine, right? But if you like that perfect placement, if we pull out our stamp apparatus, that gives us a perfect placement. So let me grab mine. And for this instance, I've used both the panels, and I have my foam mat here because I need to raise that up a little bit because photopolymer stamps don't have any foam on them like the cling stamps do. So then I'm also going to put a piece of my grid paper here, and then I'm going to remove my stamp, and it doesn't matter where we place it. And then what I'm going to do is I've inked it up. And I also wanted to show you a little trick. If you put your stamp case underneath there, it's a more level, your stamp is more level, so it'll ink a little easier. So I'll stamp down on my grid paper. Then I'll come back in with my relief image. So this is what the piece I cut to die cut my stem and leaves from. I'll center that up, and then I'll drop my die cut back in to that hole. I'll ink it up, and then I'll close the panel here, and then I end up with perfect placement. Okay. Now I have the other panel on there on my stamp apparatus, so I could do this. Well, I'll just go ahead and place my leaf on another section of my grid paper there. Then I'll ink this one up, the larger image up. I'll stamp it down. I'll move my relief image, center that up, hold it down with a magnet, re-ink, drop in my larger leaf, and then stamp the image down. And you know what? I think I'd like that a little darker. So I'm just going to drop it back in there because that's the beauty of a Stamparatus, is that you get perfect placement every single time. So let's see how that looks. Oh yeah, I like that better. So there we go. There's our 2 leaves. And you just repeat the process for the stem if you wanted to. And then that's all our stamping actually. Unless you'd like to bring that tulip back in and stamp it on your envelope. All right, so we're going to save the mechanism for last. It's easier to place this once we have basically the whole card put together. So let's start by adding our 2 little strips of designer series paper at the top and bottom of our basic white piece. And you can use Stampin' Seal for this. You could use liquid glue, whatever you prefer. And this paper is directional, so we gotta kind of be careful where you place it. And I just placed it so I have like a little, like 1/16 of an inch of the white showing. And I want the same border here as I want up here. So I think that looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to trim the excess. And before I add that to my card base, I'm going to bring it in and fold along the score lines here. Oops. And use my bone folder to get a nice crease on that. Okay. And then, oh, geez, a little piece hanging around. Then I'm going to bring this one, the second side in, and I'm going to snug it up nice and tight. And then I'm going to bring my bone folder in and put a crease on there. Now, if it's not exactly perfect and tight, it'll be fine. Okay, so then we'll add this piece into our card base. And we're going to add it to the center section here, and we want equal borders all the way around. Okay. Then we'll add our designer series paper to the outside. Again, we'll use our Stampin' Seal for that. And like I said before, this is directional, so be sure when you put it on the front of your card, you have it going the right direction. I want to see, did I cut these? So, yeah, look, I cut them so they could be one continuous line. Doesn't really matter because we're going to put that belly band on it. So you probably wouldn't even notice if it wasn't cut that way, but all right. And so we want these to be centered in those flaps so they have equal borders all the way around. And then when I add the second one, I'm going to look to make sure that I can create a straight line across between the two pieces. And I think, there we go. Okay. So now let's add our belly band. So this was cut and it's only scored on one side. And I'll show you why in a second here, but let's get this going. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip our card in and wrapping the belly band around, and then we're just going to bring this one over and give it a little fold and get it lined up. And then once we get a little crease in there, we're going to pull it back off, and then we'll firm up that, or make that crease nice and sharp with our bone folder. Now the reason we didn't score both sides is because a belly band, you want it to be not too loose, so it, you know, it sits kittywampus on your card, but you don't want it to be so tight that you can't get it off. So by not scoring it that second time, you can adjust it to however your card base folds up. So then we want to add a little Stampin' Seal to the one flap, and then we're going to secure it like that. Okay. Belly bands, you want them to, you know, not break loose, and you could use a little tear and tape adhesive if you wanted there, but because we're going to add this label on the top, it'll make sure that the two sides stay together. So we're going to add our greeting to our die cut rich raspberry piece. Again, this was die cut with the Tasteful Labels dies, which are retiring. I'm very sad because I love these dies. So if you don't have them, quick get them before they're gone. And then I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Dimensionals, and we are going to put one in the center and then one on either side. And then we'll center that up. Okay, and usually I leave the embellishments for last, but we might as well put them on since we're right here. So here's two of the larger butterflies. Place them wherever you think they look best. Okay, so we've got that much done. Now we need to work on our tulip here. So let's start by putting our tulip flower heads together. Now these were cut using the tulip dies, and if you ordered a class kit by mail from either Gina or me, you got all these parts and pieces. And you're probably wondering, oh my goodness, what do we do with all those parts and pieces? So let's lay them out. So you have three that look like this. And let me go back to the samples again. Here is one tulip. That's this one folded up with a couple extra pieces. Here's another tulip, and that's this one, again with a couple extra pieces. And then lastly, it's just like a bud, and that only has two pieces. Okay. Now this designer series paper is the same designer series paper. It's actually the back side of this piece that we cut these out, and it's kind of a, as you can tell, kind of all over design. It has, but it's like a wash, if you will. So when you die cut them, you're going to end up with lights and darks. Perfectly fine. And then you can play with, you know, do I like the light, the dark, you know, how do I want it? But these dies are cool because they fold in like this. Do you see that? So for this tulip here, what we're going to do is we're going to put a little Stampin' Seal right here. And we're going to start by putting this piece in. And we're not going to put a lot of pressure on it because we're going to set them all together and see how we like it. And if we want to, I'm going to put a little adhesive on the back of this, I guess, too. How do I like that? Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So I'll put a little pressure on there, and then I'm going to come back with my liquid glue and just put a little bit here and a little bit here. Now you can really play with these tulips. You could add, we got a little carried away with the glue there to wipe a little bit of that off. You could add some sponge to the edge, you know, sponge a little ink on the edge. You can use a little marker on the edge if you want to. I mean, there's so many different ways you can play with putting these tulips together and how you stamp them and all that kind of stuff. So there's one flower head. And you only need one flower head per card, but I wanted to show you how to put them all together. So this one folds like this. Okay. So we're going to do that same thing. If we look at this one. So we'll start by putting a little adhesive. Maybe I'll put it on this piece this time. Put that here. Not too much pressure because I want to fold it all up and see what I think. If I close it, I like that. Okay. So then I'm going to put a little liquid glue here and a little bit right there. And then we'll close that back up. Oops. Okay, so there's flower head number 2. And then this last one, this little bud, goes like this. And then this drops in. No, it doesn't drop in. Sorry. It goes on top like that. So I've also seen people take bone folders and make little, they kind of shape the petals a little bit too. If you want a really flat card, you maybe wouldn't want to do that, but especially on the inside of the card, I think that might just create too much texture. Which way do I have this one going? Oh, I went this way on this one. Yeah, there we go. See, you really can play with it. You can go any direction that you want. All right, there are our flower heads. Okay, so then let's get this all ready to go, this part here, and then we'll put the mechanism in and attach it. So we'll start out by adding our basic white piece that was die cut with the stitched rectangles dies, and we'll add that to our rich raspberry piece. Centering that up. Then we'll bring back in our leaves and our stem. And I'll start by adding our stem. I think the best way to add this is with our liquid glue. I'm going to put my smaller leaf first. And I kind of cover up the bottom of the stem a little bit. And then I'll add our larger leaf. And this one's going to overlap both the stem and the first leaf. And whatever distance I created here on the right side between the leaf and the cut edge of the basic white piece, I'm going to try to mimic that on the other side. Okay. And then we'll put our tulip on there. Okay, so that's all ready to go. Now we just have to put the mechanism into our card. So you have this little 1" by 4" piece of basic white cardstock, and it's scored 3 times. So what you do is that you'll just start folding them. We're going to fold them all the same direction. So once, this one goes in half, and then one more time. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to lay it this way, and so the shortest piece, shortest rectangle that was scored, the opposite side of that is where we're going to put our adhesive, and that's from the cut edge to that first score line. Okay, so don't go over. Looks like I did a little bit here. Okay, let me get that cleaned up. Not that we're going to see it, but it just makes it easier, okay? So here's the largest section, and that's where our adhesive went. So we bring our card in, and we line this up so it's centered from top to bottom, and the cut edge tucks in right up to that score line, like that. And we put some pressure on it. Okay. Next, we're going to fold it in half, and now we're going to put adhesive on that little section, just that little, there's a 1/2 inch score line there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to close our left flap, and it's going to create this pop-up for our tulip to go on. Okay, so then we're going to put adhesive from the edge that's attached to the front flap to the score line. So not any here, because that's what's going to stand up. Okay, we don't want any adhesive on that. So just from this edge to the score line. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hold the left flap up, and then we're going to tuck that piece in. Now you want to center it so when it stands up, you have the same border at the top and bottom. It looks like I need to bring it down just a little bit. Maybe. Oh, yep, there we go. Tuck it as tight as you can. And then once you get it tucked in there, you can just go ahead and close it and put some pressure on it. And there you go. Look at that. So if we add our belly button back on, and bring our envelope back in, there we go. That's our third card design. And now I'd like to share a few more samples made using the Flowering Field Suite. And I'll start with the Flowering Tulips bundle. So I'm going to bring back in our second card that we made today and want to show you a color alternative. So rather than the Evening Evergreen pocket, I used Mango Medley. Here's a sweet little card, just your stamped ink and paper with a little punch and a little bling. One of the great things about being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator is that we love to share ideas with each other. This one was made by Sandra Mentz, and I received it in a swap, and I thought it was really a great way to highlight Designer Series paper. Here's one I made that shows another pattern of the Designer Series paper, and it's pretty neat. It's like a sky with some clouds. I did take and I stamped all the 3 different tulips, and then the dies that coordinate with the Flowering Tulips stamp set actually has dies to cut out the flowers when they're stamped as well. And I thought it needed a little something when I put it all together. So popping these up just slightly with mini glue dots really, I think, added a nice little texture to the card. This card was made by Susan Kempfield. I thought it was really sweet, just simple and sweet. This card was made by Mary Kiley. So pretty. And then I couldn't resist pulling out the tulip punch to put with our paper. And just a little note here, I took my Calypso Coral Stampin' Blends and I outlined all of the Mango Medley petals, and then I just came back in and just made a few lines to add some texture to that tulip. And now I have a few samples that were made using the Tulip Fields bundle. This first one by Mary Schmidt is quite lovely. She did a belly band like we did for the third card for the class. And then she pulled another stamp set in, the Happy and Heartfelt greeting stamp set for her greeting. And then notice how clever Lisa was. So she took the canopy of the tree and she stamped it multiple times down here to create grass, so her windmill looks like it's sitting in a field. This next one combines both bundles. This one was done by Christine Pierce. And this last one was one that we made during one of our team gatherings. It was our make and take, and it opens this way. But what's kind of clever about this is the fun fold. It's called a bay front window card. It tucks like this, and then it stands up. So I thought that was really clever. And then I couldn't resist using the Flowering Field Suite to make myself an art piece to go in my stamping studio. Stampin' Up! Has a whole line of all-inclusive kits, and this is one of their latest one. It's called the Celebrate Today Magnet Board Kit, and I couldn't resist adding some tulips to mine. And I even lined this pocket with some of that Designer Series paper from the suite. This kit is pretty cool, and it's customizable. So you have different backgrounds, 4 different backgrounds. You have a whole bunch of cards that you can decide if you want to use or not. Whole bunch of stickers in different languages. So pick your language, pick your sticker to add to your board. And then I saw a clever idea where a demonstrator showed that where she took a window sheet and she put it over the calendar and like this to-do list card so that you can take your dry erase markers and write on there, and then when you're done you can just wipe them off. So I hope all these ideas that I showed you during this video help inspire you to make even more beautiful cards using your Flowering Fields Suite by Stampin' Up. Thanks for joining us for this month's Stampin' Class by Mail, and now here's Gina with a few more things for you.
Thanks for demonstrating how to make those beautiful cards, Brenda. Make sure to follow the link in the video description to access a special Pinterest board that Brenda and I curated to show you even more ways to use your supplies. Next month, it's my turn to design and share the cards with you, and I'm excited to share a sneak peek of the 3 card designs using the Hey Sports Fan Suite from Stampin' Up's January to June 2022 mini catalog. If you order a Class by Mail kit, you'll get all the paper and embellishments you need shipped to your door. You'll just need to make sure to have the stamp set, ink pads, and other assembly supplies shown here. The registration deadline to guarantee your class supplies is May 5th, 2022. Also, check your email for more details about some bonus opportunities, including a chance to get a free Class by Mail sampler kit by placing a qualifying Stampin' Up! Order from either Brenda or me. Reach out to either Brenda or me if you'd like to be added to our email list, and also don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our future videos. We always love getting your feedback on these classes by mail, so go ahead and leave a comment here on this video and let us know which card design you like most. Until next month, happy stamping!